Now, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love a pint. Love a pint. And specifically, I love a Guinness. And one of the things that I do absolutely adore about a Guinness is the fact that, you know, one, it's a fantastic creamy pint. And two, it goes incredibly well with beef. So I've been tossing up the idea of doing a beef or steak and Guinness pie for a while. Obviously it is the summertime, so pies are a little bit more winter food, so I decided to go for the humble pasty. And considering a Cornish pasty or a Cornish-esque pasty had been on my radar for a while, it seemed a very good time to sort of combine both ideas and whop out something special. So what you find yourself watching now is my Guinness and beef short rib pasty, which, as something specials go, does get right up there. So the beef and the Guinness are now firmly sat on the subs bench, because before all else you do need to make the pastry that goes around the pasty. Now, I don't know if you've seen the cheese twist or if you've seen the sausage roll video that I did. These are quite similar. It is just a fairly rough puff pastry, so it's a ton of flour, a bit of salt, some cold water, put that into a rough dough, add well, I did 250 grams, so equal parts butter to flour, fold that into the dough, leave invisible chunks, and then just roll it out, fold into thirds, roll it out, fold into thirds, roll it out, fold into thirds. 4 is the magic number. And then obviously what we do is we wrap it up and put it into chill whilst we get busy with the filling. So about half an hour I'm meant to be chilling this for, but you can leave it for anywhere up to about 3 days. But obviously this is one of my videos, so one of my videos wouldn't be exactly right without a good amount of hiccups. So believe the fact that along the way we do have some problems. Beef short rib time makes an entrance. So I went to the butcher's, got some beef short rib and trimmed them down off the bone as much as I can to try and get some sort of uniform chunks. It does say between 2 and 3 centimeters, but I don't know if you've ever really chunked up beef short rib yourself. Sometimes it just doesn't work out like that. So we do have an array of chunks, which do need browning and seasoning before any sort of pasty combination comes involved. So for the seasoning, it's quite simply a couple of tablespoons of flour, salt and pepper, smoked paprika and some garlic powder. Then have a bit of warmed olive oil in a pan, and in batches, because you don't want to crowd it too much, slightly brown. Get some nice browning on those chunks of short rib. I will tell you now that the flavour at the end on this pasty was absolutely incredible, and it all starts here at the browning stage. I mean, you will get fond on the bottom of this pan, so the brown sort of stick to the bottom of the pan stuff there, which you can partially see as you brown more short rib, and then as you bring in the veggies and the other bits and bobs which then go inside the pasty, that fond just creates one of the most insanely deep, rich and velvety flavours. It is sort of vital, so don't go scratching. If you are going to copy this, don't go scratching that off and cleaning the pan in between. Make sure you do use that one pan uniformed throughout the entire thing. So I've got myself a new word. I have found a new word, and the next thing that we add to this is, and forgive me if I do butcher this, mirepoix or mirepoix. It is the sort of foundation for almost every sort of soup or braising flavours, which quite simply is 2 parts onion, 1 part celery, 1 part carrot. Now obviously if you are part of the cooking world, or if you're big into the cooking, naturally you know that already, but I didn't, so every day's a learning day, that's what they say. Now, from what I understand, a mirepoix is meant to be diced, but so obviously mine is quite chunky. It's going to be chunky naturally due to the end size of the product, and obviously I want some substantial sort of filling, or not almost crunch, but some sort of texture to it at the end. I don't just want it to be like a thick soup paste, if that makes sense. So you get your mirepoix, you chop it up, your carrots, your celery, your onions, and then add that to the pan with the fond on the bottom. Obviously we've set our browned short rib aside now, and we're going to cook this off for 5 to 7 minutes, and then you want to add your other flavours. So I am loosely or roughly dicing up a whole garlic bulb and 2 giant portobello mushrooms, because obviously beef and mushroom is flavour of the gods, and with, you know, Guinness, the nectar of the gods, I mean, you can't really go wrong there, can you? So once they're chopped up, diced up, you know, hacked up, however you want to do it, just add them to the onions, the carrot, the celery, the fond, and let them cook off for another 3 to 4 minutes whilst I boil the kettle and make up some beef stock. Now obviously this is a cheater's beef stock. I'm not going to go out of my way to get all of the bones, etc. I mean, I'm not a restaurant and I enjoyed it either way, so I just got a standard Knorr, I think it is, beef stock from the shop, put it in some hot water, whisk that up together like so. I then left this to cool on the side for a few minutes. It isn't typically necessary, it's just obviously I had a bit of time whilst everything was sort of cooking off in the pan, so I decided to do this ahead of time. Now we move on to building some flavour in the filling. So you get yourself a tablespoon and a half of tomato paste, add that to your mixture, cook it off for a minute and a half, and then crack open a chilled can of the black stuff. Now I don't know if it's actually necessary because it did end up sort of fizzing up when you added it to the pan anyway, but I let the black stuff, the Guinness, settle before adding it to and deglazing the pan. And by deglazing, if you didn't know, I mean adding it in and then scraping all of that fond off the bottom and mixing it into the liquid which you now have. After the deglazing of the pan and letting the liquid settle, I did just let it sort of sit and bubble for a minute, because obviously as much as you want as much of the Guinness flavour as possible, you don't really want an overbearing sort of alcohol taste. Once you've done that, add the pre-made beef stock and a few good dashes of the one and only Liam Perrin's Worcester sauce, and then back to the pan we put the browned short rib. I have now acquired a couple of green fingers and got a thyme and a rosemary plant rather than using the dried seasoning all the time. So I've plucked a healthy amount of both and added that to the pot, which we now need to leave to simmer for a good hour to 90 minutes. One, to obviously reduce the liquid down to something which is thick and glossy, but two, you also need to make that short rib as tender as possible. So in the meantime, I peeled and cubed is probably more apt, some potatoes, the final sort of piece of the pasty puzzle, and that's so obviously it adds a bit of texture, a bit of filling. So our sort of dense pasty filling is complete. It has simmered for an hour or two, and we need to leave that to cool entirely, mark my words, entirely, before we add it to the pastry. Now this is purely because if you add it too hot, much like I'm doing currently, what it will do is weaken the structure of the pastry which you've had in the fridge. So naturally what you don't think about is the pastry is made up of pretty much 45 to 50% butter. So obviously if you add in some hot filling, that is going to melt the butter, completely weakening the pastry itself. So if you do what I did and add it too warm, you will have to then make a new batch of pastry. So don't do what I did, try and do it right the first time, don't try and cut corners, because inevitably it does take longer in the long run, because now I have to make some new pastry and let that chill thoroughly for half an hour. On the plus side, I know that when I do return to it, that the filling is completely cooled, and I did somehow make an absolute hack of making a new rough puff pastry, which is fantastic, and doing it all sort of like in one hit. I don't know if you just saw that, it was a bit magic. It went past really quick because obviously that's how efficient the hack is. So that went to chill, that then come out of chill a good half an hour to an hour later. Now, as I say, it is completely cooled, my filling, so let's roll this back out and use a smarter technique where we don't have to lift the pastry off, where we slide a pan or a tray underneath the pastry, put it on there, and then fold it over, because this seems a lot smarter. See, there's hacks coming out absolutely everywhere in this. Also, duly noted, the trusty spoon is gone, because I've managed to purchase myself a pastry brush. And with said pastry brush, I wet down the sides just to sort of secure the crimp of the pasty a little bit better. Egg wash this fella up. Egg wash is quite simply 2 eggs and a little bit of milk, and then score some steam vents in the top. This fella is now ready for 170 degrees for 2 hours, and bam, we got ourselves a golden brown pasty. At this point, as I'm sure returning viewers would know, I do normally weigh the creation to show you exactly how heavy it was, but I was starving due to a technical error with the pastry and not being able to cook anything whilst this was doing its thing. So I decided we were having this for dinner, which was not a bad choice. So I quickly rustled up a few sauteed potatoes from the potatoes which I over chopped earlier to fit into the pie, wazzed a bit of gravy together, and I'll be honest, it was something magical. See, seasoned sauteed potatoes, poured myself a fresh Guinness, because obviously what dinner is not complete without a Guinness pie and more Guinness to accompany it. Bit of gravy over the top, and whop, straight in the gob. So I'll say thanks for the watch now whilst I go and deal with a blister on the roof of my mouth.